am a serial promise breaker. That's my confession. When it comes from like losing 20 pounds or keeping a very serious promise that's tied to my heart surgery to not eat bacon, egg, and cheese biscuits, I just can't do it. Even if I write it down or adopt the attitude that it takes 21 days to break a habit, it just does not work. And I've broken so many promises to myself over the years, I could stand in front of a mirror and say, Walt, I don't trust you. And even worse, Walt, you're a liar. So why am I telling you this? Why am I sharing this with you? It's because the promises that we make and the promises that we keep and the promises that we break define how others perceive us and how we perceive ourselves. And when people consistently fail to keep the promises that they make, trust wears away. So how did this serial promise breaker come to this conclusion? Well, something happened a few years ago. I had become a little pudgy, a little fat around the jowls, and my wife, Ann, promised me that she would help me get the weight off. I lost 35 pounds. Ann pushed her promise into being, and I grabbed it and pulled it, and we made it happen together. And I asked myself, what just happened? Was it Ann's effort, or was it the promise? And the answer came in the writings of Stephen Darwall, Yale University professor of philosophy. And this is what he writes about promises. Number one, a promise must be between two humans. And number two, a promise must be accepted in order for it to have any power or any effect. Maybe that's why all the promises we've been making to ourselves over all the years have been failing. I'm not two people, so I can't make a promise to myself, and I certainly can't accept it because it's never happening. If we buy into that, then we can understand maybe that's why our frustration is around promises we make to ourselves. But if you want the power of what you perceive a promise made to yourself is, then possibly ask for help. Ask for somebody to help you. And when they promise to say, I'll help you, you grab their promise and you combine their energy with your energy, and we can make amazing things happen. So now I'm going to talk a little bit about promises at work and how they have the potential to shape trust. So just a little bit of context. What I do for a living, my day job, is I come in from the outside of companies and get really deep on the inside of companies to figure out how they work and what works and what doesn't work. I'm what you might call a management consultant. I know, boo, 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 down with the management consultant. But that's what I do. And I've seen my fair share of confusion and dysfunction and lack of trust at work. And this lack of trust comes from the fact that companies are not paying attention to the promises that they're making, or they're even unaware of the promises that they're making. Like classic promises that employers are making to employees. Here's your job description. Super clearly defined roles, tied to procedures, tied to workflows. That's a promise that they're putting into being, and you accept that job, you've accepted that promise. Another classic nowadays is core values, where the company's promising to surround you with people who have these core values, who demonstrate these attitudes and behaviors, and you're accepting that promise. Then a simple promise is just how we run the weekly meeting. Examples: one client, hydraulics, growing like crazy, and there's always this rock star, superstar, the great producer, Tommy. And Tommy brings in the bacon. Problem is Tommy is a promise breaker. Not living into the core values, not following the procedures, absolutely breaking the promises, killing trust, treating everybody up and down the line poorly. And when hydraulics finally summoned up the courage and let Tommy find another place to work, promises were kept and trust grew. And when you think about it, companies are like a big bowl of warm pudding. And in the center of that pudding is a fly, the promise breaker. And when the company has the guts to scoop that fly out and lay it aside, the pudding just comes back together. Promises are kept, and it's delicious. Another company, Security Inc.'s production team had gotten together and decided on how they were going to run the weekly meeting, when it would start, when it would end, what the agenda was, how they would process issues during the day, and that promise was pushed into being and was accepted by the team, and trust was growing and results were growing. Amazing thing. And then Susie, the founder, bless her heart, decides she's going to join the meeting and start helping out. And she joins, completely throwing the agenda out, just yakking on and on, not even seeing like the hearts and souls of the team drop. Companies that have the courage and the patience to really pay attention to and care about the promises that they're making, and making those promises overtly, and then making sure that the employee is accepting those promises, and then putting systems in place that allow everybody to keep the promises, enjoy more trust, and they also enjoy greater results. So I've talked about personal promises that we make to ourselves, and I've talked about promises at work, and now I just want to leave you with one thing to chew on, and it has to do with humanity. And it goes like this. This is the formula. Promises that are made plus promises that are accepted plus promises that are kept form the bedrock of trust. And trust, in turn, is the foundation of our shared humanity. And if you think about it, if there's a way to build more collaboration and cooperation and trust in the world, even with those we might not see eye to eye with, it is as simple as slowing down and focusing. Slowing down and focusing on the promises that we can make, and the promises that we can accept, and the promises that we can keep.